Hello friends, welcome back. In our earlier videos, we have spoken about Section 80C and some investment instruments like EPF and PPF. In today's video, we will talk about National Pension System or National Pension Scheme. One of the unique features about NPS is the fact that you can save over and above the 1.5 lakhs allowed in Section 80C. For instance, under Section 80 CCD 1B, it lets you save additional 50,000 rupees, which is a deduction in your taxable income. While many of us know about these common things, there are certain important nuances that one should understand. So in today's video, we will know about all those important details about NPS. We'll try to compare that with other investment instruments such as EPF and PPF, and most importantly, we'll try to understand the minute details of NPS with respect to taxation, because NPS is quite different from other instruments and quite complex, which we need to understand very clearly. So if you have not seen our previous video on Section 80C to know about all the investment options that are available under this section, you must look into the video, which we will put it in the description. Now, before we get started, a brief disclaimer: we are not tax experts. This video has been prepared based on the publicly available information and for the purpose of creating awareness among the general public. Before investing, please consult your tax expert or do your own research. Now let's get started. If you look at the history of NPS, it dates back to 2004. Before 2004, all the government employees used to receive pension from the government. But after 2004, the government said that we will not be paying pension anymore. Instead, we will set up something called the National Pension System, and all government employees will be receiving a pension from the National Pension System, to which they'll be contributing from their salary. In 2009, it was opened up for all citizens of India whose age is between 18 to 65 years. Now, if you look at NPS, it is regulated by PFRDA, that is the Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authority. While this is the regulatory body, the pension fund is managed by 7 appointed fund managers, and they are LIC, UTI and SBI pension funds that manages the money of both private and government employees, whereas the other 4 fund managers manage the NPS deposits of private players. Now, if you look at the eligibility, any Indian citizen or an NRI can open an NPS account, and their age must be between 18 to 65 years of age. Recently, there was a news article that stated that almost 5% of people who open NPS account were above the age of 60. So there are 2 types of NPS accounts. One is a tier 1 account, the other one is a tier 2 account. Only tier 1 account will be eligible for all kinds of taxation benefits under Section 80C, and in this video we will focus primarily on tier 1 accounts. Now let us understand how to invest in NPS. Either you can invest online through this link by submitting necessary documents, or you can go to designated banks and post office that are called point of presence, and you can open your account directly from there. People who are salaried can also invest in NPS via their employers, which is capped at about 10% of basic plus DA. Now, let us understand in detail about the returns of NPS. So, to understand the returns of NPS, we must understand where NPS money is invested. Investments are distributed across 4 asset classes. What are they? Number 1, the low risk government bonds, then the moderate risk corporate bonds, high risk equities or stock market, and there are some very high asset classes such as real estate investment trust and infrastructure investment trust. Generally, the very high risk investments or asset classes are capped at 5% of your total contributions, right? So while unlike EPF or PPF, there is a choice that an investor gets on how much money one can allocate into different types of asset classes, but there may also be some investors who's not interested in such decision making. So NPS provides you 2 options. One is your active choice, that is, the investor will be able to choose what amount of money goes into each of the asset classes. However, there are certain rules associated with it. Whereas in the auto choice, according to your age and risk appetite, the PFRD has defined the contribution across the different asset classes. Let us understand this one by one. So in active choice, what are those conditions? So the conditions are: number 1, so up to the age of 50, the contribution to equity is capped at 75%. Next, from the age of 51, it will start reducing by 2.5%. So by the age of 60, the total exposure to the equity asset class is 50%. Let us understand the auto choice. So as we already discussed, the auto choice depends on your age and your risk appetite. According to the risk appetite, it is classified into three types. One is your aggressive life cycle fund, the second one is the moderate life cycle fund, and the third thing is the conservative life cycle fund. So what is the difference between the two? It is just the amount of contribution that goes into equity versus other type of asset classes. As you can see, in the aggressive life cycle fund, which is generally a high risk product compared to conservative life cycle fund, up to 35 years, the contribution to equity is capped at 75%, and gradually it reduces to 15% or till the age of 55. Whereas in case of conservative life cycle fund, you can see at the age of 35, it is capped at 25% of the total contribution. So now it is very difficult to understand how much of return one can get based on this data alone. So what you can do is you can go to the NPS website and you can download the latest returns of different pension funds. That is what I have put as screenshots here. So this is scheme E, that is equity, and this is scheme C, which is the corporate bond. As you can see, the 1 year, 3 year, 5 year and 7 year returns are given here. You can see that the 10-year returns are around 12% and 1 year returns are around 58%. One must approach this returns with caution because the current stock market levels are pretty high and it is slightly overvalued. Last year by the same time, Nifty was around 8,000 to 9,500, whereas now Nifty is above 15,500. So while you are looking at this, one must understand that this comprises the latest market scenario, right? If you can look at the corporate bond returns, the 10-year returns are around 10.25% on an average across funds, whereas the 1 year, there is no big difference between the 1 year return and the 10-year returns. Similarly, you can see the returns of each of the funds by visiting this link, which we will put up in the description. Now, let us understand the lock-in period and withdrawal. So the lock-in period for NPS is up till the age of 60, right? But you cannot withdraw the complete amount by the age of 60. Only 60% of the total maturity amount you can withdraw as lump sum amount. The remaining 40%, you need to buy an annuity plan with one of the providers, which will provide you a steady income with a return of 6%. Whereas your lump sum amount, it need not necessarily be withdrawn at the age of 60. There is a possibility, there is an option that is given to the investors to defer that by 10 years with or without contribution, whereas you will keep getting the returns from the investments. So these are the list of the annuity service providers one must buy the annuity plan from. Now, there are also some instances where we can withdraw the amount partially and with certain rules. You cannot withdraw more than 25% of your contribution. What do you mean by your contribution? In many cases, both the employer and the employee contributes to NPS, and here only the employee contribution part can be withdrawn, and that too only 25% of it. And what are those conditions? The conditions are, it can be withdrawn only 3 times in the entire tenure, and the subsequent withdrawal, partial withdrawals must have a minimum gap of about 5 years, and you can withdraw for higher education, marriage, buying residential house, or for treatment of critical illnesses. There is also a possibility to exit NPS prematurely. So, but you will not be able to withdraw lump sum amount, which is 60% if you exit at 60 years. You can withdraw only 20% if you are exiting NPS prematurely, and 80% must go into annuity plan. If the entire corpus is less than 1 lakh, then there is no need of any annuity plan and you can withdraw the total amount completely. Now we are coming to the most important part, which is the taxation. As we spoke earlier, only tier 1 account is eligible for income tax benefit, and many people say that it comes under the category EEE, that is exempt, exempt and exempt, but I have a slight disagreement. Of course, the investment that you make every year is exempt, the returns that you make every year is also exempt, but the maturity amount when you withdraw, it's not completely exempt, it's partially exempt. Why are we saying so? As we saw earlier, at the age of 60, you will be withdrawing one lump sum amount and you'll be buying an annuity plan, right? Only the lump sum amount is eligible for it is exempt from tax, whereas your annuity plan is not exempt from tax and it will come under your taxable income and you have to pay taxes according to your tax bracket. Now let us understand how much of income is exempt under NPS. So this is the most crucial part one must understand, and this is one of the most unique features of NPS. Under section 80CCD1, contributions up to 1.5 lakh or 10% of basic plus DA, whichever is lower, can be exempt from income tax. In addition, under section 80CCD1B, there is an additional 50,000 one can claim as a deduction from your net taxable income. Over and above that, under section 80CCD2, the employer contribution, which is made at the levels of 10% of your basic plus DA, is also exempt from income tax. But there is one condition here: the total employer contribution of NPS plus EPF must not cross a total of 7.5 lakhs, above which it gets taxed. Let us understand this with an example. Example 1. There is an individual whose total pay is 12 lakh and whose basic plus DA is around 6 lakhs. In this case, the individual makes a contribution to PPF of about 50,000 per year and under NPS for about 75,000. So the total investment that one is making is 1,25,000. Now let us understand how much of a exemption this person can claim. The direct investment in PPF completely 50,000 is exempt from income tax, but if you look at NPS, for 10% of basic plus DA is only 60,000 because the individual's annual basic plus DA is only 6 lakhs. So even though the NPS investment is 75,000, only 60,000 is eligible for exemption. Hence the total exemption allowed is 1,10,000. Now let us come to a different example where an individual earns 20 lakhs and his or her basic plus DA is around 10 lakhs. So in this scenario, let us say the individual contributes 1 lakh per annum in PPF and a self contribution to NPS is 1.5 lakhs and the employer also contributes at a rate of 10% of basic plus DA, which is 1 lakh. So the total investment that gets into these instruments is around 3.5 lakhs. So in this scenario, what happens is the entire amount under PPF and the NPS self contribution is considered. So under section 80CCD, 1.5 lakhs is considered under section 80CCD1B and additional 50,000 is also considered. So the 2 lakh investment is completely exempt from tax. Now coming to the remaining NPS employer contribution, that is also exempt from tax under section 80CCD2. So out of the 3.5 lakhs of total investment, 3 lakhs is exempt for income tax, that is it can be deducted from your taxable income. Hope you understood this. Now let us briefly compare EPF, PPF and NPS. As you can see, the returns in EPF is around 8.5% and earlier it was around 8.8, 8.9%. PPF current returns are around 7.1% and NPS, according to which type of choice that you are making, it can hover anywhere between 8% to 11%. One should be very careful that the past returns need not necessarily reflect the future returns. If you look at the lock-in period, PPF has the least lock-in period, whereas both NPF and EPF are quite long-term products with 58 years and 60 years of age as the lock-in period. If you look at the risk, EPF and PPF are low-risk instruments which provides guaranteed return, whereas NPS is a medium risk instrument because there is some amount of money that goes into the equity market and corporate bonds. In case of taxation, both EPF and PPF are come under the exempt category, whereas as we already discussed, NPS comes under exempt and partially exempt because of the taxability of the annuity plan. The unique feature of NPS is the fact that you can claim exemption of additional amount of about 50,000 under section 80CCD1B and an employer contribution also exempt under section 80CCD2. Now let us put some figures to it, right? So far we have been speaking very theoretically. If you look at it, let us say every individual, there is an individual who invests in NPS every year 1 lakh and the age of the individual is around 30 years. So in this case, what would be the return that individual would be getting? Let us look at it with a simple Excel calculator, right? So this is the Excel calculator. So how am I computing these returns? These returns are based on the latest returns that is given in the NPS website. I have taken the 10-year returns because the 5-year or 3-year or 1-year return might not present the accurate picture. So I have taken the 10-year average return of all these pension funds across all the asset classes and I have distributed according to the choice one is making. Let us say if an individual is making a aggressive life cycle fund choice, then 75% of the amount will go to equity fund till the age of 35 years and it will gradually decrease. So like that, I have created a distribution matrix here, and based on that I have allocated the funds accordingly, right? Now let us understand how much of a return one will get if every year that individual is contributing 1 lakh. So if an individual is contributing 1 lakh under an aggressive life cycle fund, based on the past returns, one can earn a total return of 2.4 crores, whereas in case of a conservative fund, it would be 1.95 crores. But the total lump sum amount one can withdraw is only 60%, and hence here in this case it's around 1.44 crores, and in this case about 1.17 crores. If you compare this with PPF and EPF for 30 years, the same amount, 30-year 1 lakh investment in PPF would fetch you around 1.03 crores, and in case of EPF it would fetch around 1.34 crores, whereas NPS, the conservative life cycle fund, would fetch you 1.95 crores, but you cannot withdraw the complete amount. You can withdraw only 1.17 crores in this case. Right. Now, finally, what is our conclusion? NPS is definitely a good instrument. It has been giving good returns based on the past examples that we saw, but you should also understand that past is always not necessarily the reflection of the future. It comes under exempt, exempt and partially exempt category, which is comparably better than many of the options unless it comes under triple E category. It also provides for a higher tax savings under 3 sections. Section 80 CCD1 will give you 1.5 lakhs, CCD1B will give you additional 50,000, and employer contribution comes under section 80 CCD2 up to 10% of your basic plus DA. The only minus I see in NPS is the fact that you need to compulsorily buy an annuity plan, which has a substantially low returns of about 6%. So a few years back, even FDs were giving higher returns. So this is the only minus that I see in NPS. Hope you liked this video. Before you make a decision to invest in NPS, make an informed decision, consult your tax expert, and do your own research. If you really like this video, please help us spread this message and try to create awareness among your friends and family. Thanks for watching, and please do subscribe to our channel.